Today is day number 3 on the painting, and I'm sure it's going to be my last day. It's almost done now. I did do a couple of things off camera at the end of the day yesterday. I noticed that I had my little highlight here too close to the edge of the orange, so it made it look like it wasn't sitting correctly. If you look at the reference, it is farther back. Usually I have these oranges sitting in something so they actually go inside of the cloth a tiny little bit, but I didn't do that this year, so it doesn't look as firm as it might otherwise. But I am going to make that correction and finish it. I don't have it quite finished here. You'll notice I'm starting to model the orange with the different colors. Remember again that you're working with blue and orange, which are complements. So the shadow part in the orange has blue in it, and the shadow part in the blue has orange in it. And also down here I do have the burnt umber mixed with the ultramarine blue. So I also added some texture on this section. I actually really like this section. I think it looks nice. So I made my highlights a little stronger, and then I finished this part by making it darker here and then sort of gradually getting lighter as it goes to the top. I did use all of my paint yesterday, so I'm proud of myself. I'm going to need to put a little bit more paint on my palette before I get started. And I have also changed my water. So as I said, you don't want your water to get too mucky because then it doesn't really come clean very well. So we're going to get started in a little bit, and this will be the last video, and hopefully I'll get it finished. One more quick thing before I get to the time lapse. Tubes of paint, I told you how to make sure you're getting the lid on correctly and to squeeze this direction if you have some paint out there. But what I forgot to mention is, just like you probably were told when you were young, with toothpaste, you want to squeeze only from the bottom. I often see students grab in the middle and just squish it out. Yeah, it'll come out that way, but it also will destroy the tube after a bit, and it's very hard to get what's at the bottom part out. So always squeeze from the bottom, and it's going to come out just fine over there. Notice how I've used just a little bit, and the only indentation in this is right there. So once again, be nice to your paint, be nice to your brushes, and they will serve you well. I'm going to call this finished for demonstration purposes. It is true that I could still do more down here in particular. I would probably refine this a little bit more, but for now it's just fine. I really like what I've done with the cloth at the top. The bottom could have a little bit more work. I do want to tell you a couple of things that I forgot to tell you. Number one is why I even have you do a ground. I don't believe I ever explained that. I have you do that partly to just pull your composition together, but also because when you are a novice painter, when you're just beginning, the tendency is to not make your edges go straight next to the next edge. What I mean by that is students will leave little white canvas around. And with a ground, you can't do that because the paint's already all the way over the canvas. So you wouldn't want to have little bits of white peeking through. But if you have a little bit of the orange peeking through, like over here, that's really not a big deal. I actually do grounds most of the time when I'm painting, even though I am fairly confident in my skills. I like the way it sort of makes things glow, or it gives it a little sense of emotion. I also want to talk about the reflected highlight. We have talked about reflected highlights before, especially for round items. You want to include that. It's not your primary highlight right here. It's where the light is bouncing off of the surface that this is sitting on. This makes it look a lot more round. So even though the photo doesn't have a really strong reflected highlight, it's important to put it in there. Secondly, we did talk about the color of this little nose area here, or belly button, or whatever it is, where it connects to the tree. You don't want to over green it. You just want to give it a sense of green. So it's mostly white with a little bit of blue and a little bit of yellow, but also a tiny hint of orange in there. As well, I've taken my blue and my orange and I've added that little bit of shadow underneath. This is the orange right there. So you can see it's similar, it's not exact, but it works just fine. Also, you notice that this orange has little divots all over it because it's got a texture. I just wanted to hint at that texture. So I've actually broadened my colors. I've got some red in there. But reminder again, you don't want to just use white in these highlight areas because it's going to become too peachy. So there's a little bit of white, but usually I've mixed my white with my yellow just to add a little bit more sense of value to it. So that is the orange. Lastly, I can never say this too often, clean those brushes. You wouldn't even know that I've been using this brush too much. You might see a little hint of some color in it, but it's really, really important to clean your brushes. Eventually, they do get a little bit nappy look, and they might have just a little bit down at the bottom, but if they get too stiff, they're not going to work. So see how this is still nice and workable. So clean your brushes. Don't let them get mucky. So there you go. That is the end of the videos for acrylic painting. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with.